then I think let's get started. Hello and welcome to today's webinar, GRADEpro in Action, a live demonstration. My name is Shelby. I'm the digital marketing lead at Evidence Prime and will be the host for today's webinar. With me today, we've got Justyna and Bart, both the project and product managers of GRADEpro. Justyna will take you through a live demonstration after Bart has taken us through some interesting product updates, including the multi-intervention approach within GRADEpro.
Thank you, Shelby. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. First session in 2025. So I wanted to take this opportunity to, present product updates for, new things which we were working on through the last year and things which will be coming very soon in 2025. Mostly focus on multi-intervention approach. So let me share my screen. Yeah, so I wanted to talk today about multi-intervention approach in GRADEpro, and primarily this will be our enhancements and new functionalities which appear in these three areas. So summary of evidence, recommendations, development, and disseminations. So the approach based on multiple interventions are becoming more and more popular. More groups are asking for solutions to be able to work in this way. So some time ago, like a few years ago, we started to work on different modules because it's all connected in GRADEpro. So when we talk about evidence, it's obvious that you will want to use this evidence for recommendations development for your ETDs. And together, the results of this production will later on, you will want to present them in the dissemination. Well, this will be publication in a journal, sending to your portal. There are a lot of ways in GRADEpro that we already know through which you can disseminate your data. So I wanted to focus today on these three areas and multi-intervention approach functionalities which we developed over last year. The first one will be summary of evidence. So obviously, when we talk about multiple interventions, NMA evidence or a table which presents evidence from multiple interventions, this will be commonly coming from the NMA process, will be of interest to group. And we got a lot of questions for several years, when NMA table will be coming to GRADEpro. So I'm happy to announce that it is available now. So as you can see, there is a new module in GRADEpro, which is called NMA Evidence, and it allows you to, take your data from systematic meta-analysis system, bring them to GRADEpro, and create your digital evidence table, which you can later use for your ETD, which you can later export for your presentations, and so on and so on. So as you can see, I call this convertible NMA tables, which we present, of course, across outcomes, and why they are convertible. So this is not only about showing, some details of data and going deeper, into the data that you have, but also a possibility to present any presentation of a data from your NMA set of data as you want, because it will depend on what you actually want to present, but classical approach is that you will present all of your interventions compared to placebo, right? But this is not the only option. You may want to present all of the interventions against one other common comparator, or even you may want to compare one single intervention against all the other options. This will depend, for what purpose you use this table. And we'll talk a bit later about this when I go to the ETD and to give you example, why you may want to use such thing. But this digital NMA table allows you to choose what you actually want to present. And with few clicks, it will it will change the data to give you this actual perspective that you selected. So if you want to present the common comparator against, for example, placebo or some active comparator, you can do so and select what you want. But if you want to set common intervention, you just click and the table recalculates. And Justyna later, when she will be doing live demo of GRADEpro, will touch on some of these functionalities. I will not be showing this live today, but we will have the dedicated sessions to each of these functionalities throughout the year. So we'll probably start with NMA session as a next webinar. It will be probably somewhere in April, when we will dedicate full hour to a live presentation, how you prepare this table, how you enter the data, and so on and so on. I will not go into such details today because I wanted to give you perspective on all of these three functionalities. And obviously, NMA are more complex data structure because all of the interventions, all the effects across interventions throughout your outcomes. So as you can see, we needed to change a bit interface. You are able to import your data in the form of CSV from your network meta-analysis software. You work on the basis on the league tables. So this is like one outcome, all-cause mortality in this case, and you are working on your assessment of your certainty, for example, preparing this data for the final presentation, and you are able to later show the full table across outcomes. So inside the tool, we implemented a lot of things which were effects of the work of great working groups and publications. This is publication about assessment of certainty assessment in NMA that we used. It is built around this process which is included in paper. I highly recommend you reading this. And GRADEpro is based on this process, so it will allow you to do your certainty assessment and will calculate your GRADEpro scores the way it was advised in the paper. However, we stay flexible, right? So different groups will probably have will use this approach or may have their own, right? We are not forcing anything. GRADEpro calculates based on that approach and gives you your scorings based on that, but you are always able to override any scores, right? So you are not forced to that. You can use it, the table for your presentations and later in the ETD, even though you are not making the certainty assessment exactly the way that is presented here, but some other way. Inside this module, I will not go into much details of that today, but we included a lot of different concepts, different things that were discussed recently. This is inclusion of decision thresholds. It's also available now with auto calculation of decision thresholds. We also include narrative summaries, which you are able to use there. Effect classification, also with automation. So if you have decision thresholds, you can automate your effect classification based on absolute effect across all the effects. Few clicks and you have this prepared in your evidence presentation. Something that was, we were a bit hesitant about this, especially that this is a digital product and especially that NMA is a table that theoretically has unlimited width, right? But a lot of groups were asking for that also for reasons of, this is like required by journals to provide a paper version of evidence. So we are in the final steps of adding export to also text editor. That's more or less how it looks now. It gave us a bit of problems, but we are solving them one by one, and this is almost ready. So it will be soon added to the functionality. So this is some short summary of things that we did, with regards to NMA table, as I said, there's a lot of things to this topic. We will have to dedicate a full hour to only the NMA, and we will do this on the next GRADEpro webinar in 2 months. And today, Justyna will just show you, this in the context of a full GRADEpro, all of 3 functionalities that I will show today. The next one is about recommendations development, so about the ETD. Obviously, if we are talking about multiple interventions, we also want to talk about, giving recommendations based on comparing and judging the effect and judgment criteria on multiple interventions at the same time. So that's why we introduced multi-interventions ETD. Inside GRADEpro, you will find a new type of question, multi-intervention. These are this yellow ones. And here you see one example from the ACP guideline we used with ACP. We worked with ACP on multiple of these works related to multi-intervention approach. Here you can see 5 questions for this guideline about diabetes, treatments for diabetes. 5 questions were created. First question was like question of all the active comparators against placebo. 4 of the other questions were like supportive questions when active comparator is compared against everything else, right? And here I'm going back to the NMA because if you want to have a question like this and you want your panel to, work on that, you also need a way to present your evidence in such a way, right? So present the evidence to have DPP or GLP or other active intervention as your intervention and compare all the other effects as, comparators to that. So classically with Word, you need to prepare a lot of these sheets. If you have it in a digital way, it's just 2 clicks and you are able to import, the data set that you want to a particular question. So it saves a lot of time and you have everything in one place. So, obviously, probably some of you are familiar already with ETD process. This is quite similar, but of course, because of, a lot of interventions, there was a lot of nuances related to that. There was a lot of discussion, and great guidance on multi-intervention ETD is just behind the corner. So it will be probably published very, very soon. This is all built based on our discussion. I was also a member of a working group who worked on that. And inclusion of, as you can see, NMA table to the ETD question will give you a unique opportunity to use this data because it's digital object. So GRADEpro is able to automatically, for example, provide you with assessment of desirable effects, for each treatment, for each outcome, right? Because of inclusion of thresholds, right? So if you have your decision threshold set and you have your NMA with your absolute values imported into it, this GRADEpro will be able to, fill this all automatically for you. You will not have to spend your time, and then you can work only with panel to give this overall assessment across outcomes. So it also speeds up the process. If some of you used panel voice, we needed to do a lot of changes into a panel voice in terms how to show results from panel voting for multiple interventions. So this is of summary of judgments, and finally being able to give not only one but multiple recommendations with different strength and different certainties in the same ETD, because you have multiple interventions. You may want to give as much interventions as you have, as much recommendations as you have interventions, or it may be a smaller number, but probably this will be more than one. And the final part is about the dissemination. So this is also quite interesting and good achievement. We work together with ACP on that, which is called visual clinical guidelines. So if you were recently on Annals and you were going through the newest guidelines they published, maybe you saw this functionality, so visual guideline. This is now available in two of guidelines, newest treatment for type 2 diabetes and migraine prevention treatments. So this is something we did together. So this is like digital presentation of the whole guideline in a nice, compact way with all the key information that you want to get from this guideline in a digital format. So as you can see, you can play with the data, you can change your comparators to not only see your recommendations, but to see all the effects across outcomes for a given treatment option, right? So you have recommendation and you are able to see your effects. And as I said, this is already the guidelines are in free access, so you're able to go there. I will give the link to the chat later, and you are able to go there and see it for yourself. All of this is prepared in a module in GRADEpro. So here in the dissemination section, there is a new module in which you are able to prepare these presentations. So if you did all your work in GRADEpro, so you have NMA table and you did your recommendations in the ETD, you are able to just pull the data from both of them into this single presentation. You have these free tabs, so you can prepare actually this presentation in a free, simple steps. So in first, you have kind of an editor in which you are editing your final polishes or final edits to the text of your clinical considerations. For example, some rationale maybe needs to be tweaked. Then in the interactive part, you are preparing actually the presentation of the data from your meta-analysis for each of your treatment options. You are adding a recommendation and then your data set, which later will be presented. And then in the first step, you are able to see everything in GRADEpro in a preview. And this way you are able to make final, changes and polishes to everything. And after that, you are able to take it and export it from the software in the form of a link or a small piece of a code that can be sent. In this case, like we did with Annals, we send them, and this was sent together in a package for the publication, right? So that's how it's included there. And you see, you are able to preview everything, including the data sets. Also something new. So in the guideline about migraine prevention, you will see this new thing about cost of a treatment, which you can also, see this data and you are able to play with. So, for example, you are able to filter out some of the treatments and see how the visual changes. So, as I said, two such VCGs published already. Some more are in production. Probably will be for sure will be live this year. And you are also able to utilize this module yourself, of course, based on your template, right? So this presentation template was chosen by ACP. You would need to have your template prepared, but then it's the creation of this VCG is very simple if you have the content, like few minutes, like 15 minutes, and you are able to create such presentation if you have all the content. So just to sum up, all the free functionalities are available. We will make dedicated webinars throughout the year on each of them. there will be new features which will be added. So it's already live, you can use it, but remember that, it's like live software. So we listen to your feedback and we will add more functionalities. These functionalities are available in team and enterprise license of GRADEpro, at least for now. And this is my final slide. It's very important. So these functionalities are like first version of the software. And obviously we want to hear your feedback, because this way we are able to make these functionalities better and see what other functionalities are needed by groups, because these processes of running your guideline panels on multiple interventions can be quite complex, not only about the data, but about the whole process and then dissemination. So we are always looking for feedback and ways to make this better. Okay, so that's all from me. I'm staying here, so I will be looking at the chat in the Q&A section. Please, if you have any questions, you can put it there and I will be answering. Now I will give voice to Justyna, who will take you through GRADEpro demo. And inside this demo, this will be like whole picture, big picture of GRADEpro, but inside that presentation, you will see all of these functionalities that I was talking about today. Thank you very much.
Nicely. Thanks, Bart. So let me now share screen from my end. Okay, so hello everyone. And as Bart mentioned, what you saw in his presentation, so the new multiple intervention focused features of GRADEpro, I would like to now present in the broad context of GRADEpro itself, as GRADEpro was designed as a software to support the entire process of guideline development. So I wanted to show you where those features land in this process. I can see you asking questions in the Q&A, and we will be doing our best to answer them. Some of them will be answered in my presentation. Others we will also answer in the future webinars, as Bart mentioned. So again, stay tuned. So to start, as GRADEpro works, it is a collaborative tool to work with teams around the world, and it is focused around guideline development process. So each project, as we call them in GRADEpro, is equivalent to one guideline, and inside those projects, you see questions, and each question can be equivalent to one recommendation. Of course, not every question may end up in a recommendation, but every question in GRADEpro has potential to do so. So starting the project, you may, of course, want to collect your team of experts you will be working with, and GRADEpro allows that. So we have a wide range of various team members' access rights and roles, depending on the tasks they have assigned in the project, including what's quite important, the option to invite people to interact with the project through email-based forms only, because often it is that you have a panel of experts who are very knowledgeable in the field you want to issue recommendations in, but they don't necessarily have time to take part in detailed trainings on how to use new software. So you may want to limit their new tasks as much as possible, and this way GRADEpro allows you to send them forms only through email, so a regular form as a Google form, for example, but this way it's more simple for them and for you as well, but they can still provide their feedback. We also support the conflict of interest management, so everything can be kept transparent and up to the standards of GRADE. We support also the option of determining the scope of the guidelines, so you can brainstorm and prioritize both questions and outcomes through an online sent forms, as I mentioned. So people don't need to log in, they don't need to remember their logins, passwords, or anything. They're just being sent a personalized form where they can see questions, or in this case, outcomes. They can prioritize them on the scale of 1 to 9, and later on, based on the results of their voting, you can determine which questions and outcomes will be more most important to tackle in a guideline. After that comes, of course, the systematic review part, which is not being done in GRADEpro, but it can be done in our sister software, Laser AI, which I can also recommend you to follow if you are dealing with systematic reviews as well, or your collaborators deal with systematic reviews, then they may be interested in it. So let's say that the systematic review happened. Of course, we know it takes a lot of time, but now the review is completed, and you can come back to GRADEpro with the results. We can manage the references, so you can upload the EndNote files or other reference management files into GRADEpro, so we can have them available for referencing in the entire project. So this is also available, and then you can go to the evidence, and this will be done in 3 steps. I will first show it in the pairwise approach, because to present, let's say, a more common and more clear structure to most of the researchers, and then I will show you what it looks like with what Bart was presenting, the multiple intervention approach. So there are, I would say, 3 steps. First is the evidence. So you have to summarize and present the evidence from the systematic review. This is done through summary of findings tables or grade profiles. We have 5 different profiles, versions of tables available depending on the approach you have. So there's the grade evidence profile, but also the self table, which is used by the Cochrane collaboration. And there you can summarize the evidence with numbers. Depending on the type of outcomes, you can have the dichotomous outcomes with binary results, or there can be continuous outcomes. You can also create narrative outcomes if you can only summarize the results through text. And of course, the evidence assessment also happens here. It is really very simple, so you don't have to create the table from scratch. It is waiting for you in GRADEpro, waiting to be populated with details. And we have additional tools available, such as the risk of bias tool by Cochrane. And also, which is what is quite important for many teams, is that you can import results from RevMan. If you are using that software, you can import the results directly, and you don't have to enter them manually. So this is the evidence part. This is where the summary of results of systematic review is created and then assessed based on the GRADE criteria. The next step is the decision. So based on the evidence, you have to make a decision with the panel of experts. So that's where we come to the recommendation part, which is the evidence to decision framework, 12 criteria that have to be taken into consideration according to the GRADE method. So like we have, of course, the benefits and harms, the economic aspects of the decision, and so on and so forth. And you have to make decision on each of those aspects. You can do it on a live meeting with regular voting made through show of hands. But since, of course, many panels are working online, we also have a feature for them, which is the panel voice. And panel voice takes this evidence to decision framework and turns it into an online-based form, which the panel members can vote in online. So, for example, they are being sent a link. They can enter the question. They see the evidence you entered, and they can mark the answers they see fit. So they can look at the evidence, assess it, and based on their assessment, they can make the decisions. It is also possible to narrow down the decisions for them if you are later in the process. So instead of being able to mark the answers on the full spectrum, they see a mark suggested answer, and they can only mark whether they agree or disagree. And if they disagree, they must leave a comment. So this allows you to quicken the process, to facilitate it. And there are various approaches that can be taken. Those forms can be sent multiple times over, so you can discuss the same recommendation many times, until the panel reaches a consensus and the final final results can be assessed. I will show you what the results look like. So, for example, you see all the responses from a panel. Of course, they can be unanimous, as here, or they can be more divided, and then you will know, for example, that if you sent this before the meeting and you see this type of result, you will need to spend more time on this particular question. You also see the comments of the panel. As you can see, our panel is made of very famous scientists, and I can only wish you that you work with as large experts as here. And this way, this decision is being discussed. It can be used to either be as a preliminary questionnaire before the meeting. It can be used instead of a meeting if people are already knowledgeable in the process and they are familiar with the ETD. And finally, of course, you reach the final recommendation. So you determine which direction and strength of the recommendation is being applied. So once the recommendations are ready, there comes the last part, which is the dissemination, the publication of the results. And this GRADEpro allows you to do in a number of ways. The simplest one is just the presentations module. So this allows you to present a single recommendation in a very simple format. It is also known. It is also sometimes known as plain language recommendation, as some panels use it additionally to simplify the language, the final version of the recommendation, so that users can understand it more easily. And this can be presented online. So here is such an example of a way this recommendation could look like online. This is an example taken from the Canadian post-COVID guidelines. Another example is here. So this is the format that you saw online. Additionally, what is available is you can use GRADEpro to create a decision aid. So in terms of conditional recommendations, sometimes the patient may decide between various options and they may need some help with that decision. So also GRADEpro can help you create an interactive form which presents the evidence to the patient and helps them make an informed decision. And still, this is only one of many formats that we have. So this was the whole journey from evidence, which came from the summary, from the systematic review, through the decision-making process with the help of evidence to decision framework and panel voice, until the presentation of the results. And this is precisely what we wanted to do with the multiple intervention approach as well, naturally. So where in pairwise evidence we had this simple summary of findings table, there comes the NMA table that Bart was showing. So instead of a table which compares a single intervention to a single comparator, we have a table which compares many. I will try to make it a bit more visible. Although, of course, you can scroll through it. As you can imagine, there can be very many interventions and outcomes in a single NMA table. As Bart mentioned, it is color coded based on the thresholds, and here you can perform you can see the results. As for the evidence itself, it is entered through, as Bart mentioned, league tables for each outcome. So let's enter the mortality outcome. Here I can see the comparison of each intervention and each comparator against one another. And as Bart mentioned, the certainty of evidence assessment can happen here. So this is the equivalent of the evidence part. Then comes the decision part, and that's where the multiple intervention ETD comes in. So the ETD itself is quite similar. The criteria are basically the same, but whereas in the original one we had like A versus B here we have various interventions and various with a common comparator. So it could be like the standard treatment, for example, or a placebo, or a different treatment selected by the panel. And again, the decisions are made here by a panel of experts. So as a regular ETD can be sent through panel voice, so can be a multiple intervention ETD. Just looks a bit different. So instead of radio buttons, you have drop-down options that you can select a different one for each intervention. And again, this can be done in batches. So this in many approaches. So you can make the decision and discuss as many times as is needed to reach a consensus. So that's the decision-making part. And finally, there comes the presentation. So as Bart mentioned, we have the VCG, so Visual Clinical Guidelines. And it is built in a way that we first prepare the narrative part, or the visual part, where the clinical considerations and the text of recommendation itself and rationale can be entered or sourced from other parts of the project. In the second part, the evidence is being imported from the NMA table, and finally, we can see the preview of the format that will be seen by the users, and they can see also the plots of for each outcome, and for example, we can see different comparisons with the selected intervention of particular recommendation, and of course there are as many options as there are interventions described by this particular guideline, and also there is the cost chart that Bart mentioned as well. So this is the, let's say, a novel approach, a one-pager approach. However, if you are more some teams still want to have a document as well, depending on the requirements of the organizations or journals. So this is also available. GRADEpro allows you to create a guideline document online in a collaborative manner. So you can, for example, have someone access this document only in suggestion mode, and they can only leave suggestions to enter or to add or remove some parts which you as a administrator can accept or reject. There can be comments made for the document. So this is in essence, it is similar to Google Docs that you may know, or any other online-based document forms. But upside is here that you have it available here in GRADEpro, and you can also import recommendations from the project into this document, and then this can be made available online in a digital format. So you can have the whole document. Here it is on the example of guidelines made with the help of Elsevier team for Saudi Arabia, and the recommendations can be accessed in the document, and they can be previewed as a list. And if someone wants to learn more details of a recommendation, they can enter it and see full information for this particular recommendation. So this is still superior to your regular document. And this was also one of our latest developments. So in the end, you can go through the entire process of determining the content of the guideline, then uploading the evidence, assessing it, and discussing it with the panel of experts to finally present it in a number of ways, depending on the needs of your team, and if your focus is on particular recommendations or a guideline in its entirety. And this way it can be done both as a pairwise comparisons or as a multiple intervention approach that Bart mentioned that will be discussed in detail in the future webinars. And from my end, that would be it. I can see there are quite a lot of questions, so I will now wrap up, and let's see if we can answer some of the questions that appeared in the meantime.
Thank you very much, Justyna, and to you as well, Bart. We had a number of questions, but we've been pretty proactive answering them immediately in the Q&A. I do want to give a moment to anybody else who would like to still ask a couple questions. Maybe you haven't had a chance yet. Perhaps we could, I did link some of the links to the visual guidelines, the visual clinical guidelines in the chat below, if you want to take a look at those. And yeah, just give it a moment for any more questions. Here's one. Does GRADEpro use AI?
So GRADEpro itself doesn't have AI enabled yet, mostly because its main tasks are those that are prepared by human beings. So the grade assessment itself of quality of evidence is a complex approach, and there aren't yet models trained well enough to let's say perform this in such a way. Also, the discussion of the guideline itself and the recommendation itself are complex enough that for now they are performed only by human beings. However, we do have a module which can be used as a, let's say, as a search assistant for repositories of guidelines. It is so-called RecChat. We presented it during one of our webinars, and I guess we can link it in the materials of this webinar as well. For example, it was presented based on the database of COVID-19 recommendations, which were over 12,000 of them. So it was really hard to look through them manually. And the way it worked, it was similar to, you could say, ChatGPT, only it was made more precise, meaning that it wasn't looking for the answers throughout whole of the internet. We narrowed it down to one single database of guidelines, so that it was only using peer-reviewed and trustworthy data. And also it was trained not to hallucinate, so not to make up answers. It didn't know if a question asked by the user was not present, if the answer was not present among any of the recommendations. The answer was that I'm sorry, I cannot provide information based on the data I have. So to avoid situations where people are given unexisting information. So there is AI in that sense.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. How to import data to assess or grade for a meta-analysis? Where can we do that?
So importing this, maybe I can show, since it's a rather quick question. So you can see import buttons throughout GRADEpro, and you can import on three levels. So there's let me just click here. I can import project which is equivalent to an entire review in Revman Web. I can import question which is equivalent to an analysis group in Revman, and I can import outcomes. So this is equivalent to a single analysis, and all those three buttons work the same, meaning I click on it, I choose a file. I wonder if I'm gonna have so let's say I have this file. I will see the questions I have in this particular comparisons I have in this particular file, and I will see the outcomes. So I can mark a particular outcome and then import it into GRADEpro, and it will work the same for projects and for questions. And we also had a specific webinar on it a while back with Cochrane, so you can also look for it on the YouTube channel of Evidence Prime.
Thanks. Is GRADEpro available for systematic reviews of incidence or prevalence? We do have, Evidence Prime does have a sister tool called Laser AI, which I will also link again in the chat below. But yeah, that is a sort of separate tool. Justyna, do you want to add anything to that there?
So the systematic reviews themselves are done in Laser. However, I think the question might have been, if I understood correctly, about diagnostic questions. So let me open in this part the particular project I was showing was based on the diabetes guidelines by American College of Physicians, where there were no diagnostic questions, but we do have tables which are prepared to hold the data about sensitivity and specificity of diagnostic tests, and you can enter the data here. So I guess this might have been question about this, and of course they have also their specific evidence to decision frameworks focused on diagnostic questions, so about test accuracy, for example, or the certainty of evidence of test accuracy.
Great, thank you. Could the working group, I'm assuming that's the GRADE working group, do a webinar so we can ask them about multiple issues we face?
So they on their website, which you can, I think, if you Google GRADE working group, you will very easily find the website. They always have a calendar with the next events planned, and many of those events are webinars or presentations made live somewhere around the world. And I guess if you follow that, then you will be able to attend such events.
Thank you everybody for your attendance and for your participation in today's webinar. Bart and Justyna, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here as well. Stay tuned for future webinars and updates. We look forward to seeing what they're going to be, Justyna and Bart. So thank you very much and have a lovely day, evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much.